Hello everyone, welcome to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to today's match reaction. It finished Watford 3, Aston Villa 2 in the opening day of the Premier League season. What a way to start the campaign. Look, maybe the clean sheet was the only thing missing from yesterday, but my word, what a performance Watford put in today. We're going to be discussing that and everything that went with it. Of course, I'm joined by none other than the main man, Mr. Sam Cucho. Sam, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, absolutely brilliant. Do you know what? I miss that feeling of waking up in the morning like Watford, we're in the European places. Now, not just that, but brilliant start to the season. A Watford win. Yesterday was unbelievable. Everything about the whole day was superb, except for the last 15 minutes, which we'll touch on. But brilliant day, brilliant to be back at the stadium and brilliant to do a winning match reaction again.
Exactly, mate. I tell you what, it's been a while since we've done a match reaction, but done a match reaction in the Premier League as well. And after a Premier League win, I think Adam Leventhal hit the nail on the head yesterday. That feeling just before match of the day, after you've seen your team put in an unbelievable performance and just watching it back again, and the emotions at Vicarage Road yesterday, Sam. We'll just touch on that briefly. We mentioned in the preview the occasion, the pre-match music, the videos, seeing old faces, sneaking past people to get to your seats, ordering a pint at the game. Just those little things. How good was it to be back at the
Yeah, well, exactly that. I think the club nailed every single bit of it. In terms of the video showing everyone who unfortunately passed away before during the pandemic, and our thoughts with all of those families as well. But that just really set the tone for a special afternoon. It's not a downside really, but the atmosphere was so loud in the 1881 where I was sitting that I couldn't even hear Zcars when the players walked out. And I was like, all right, wow, the players are out here now. And it was unbelievable. And just the whole Graham Taylor match day as well. And the NHS lap of honour at half time, just absolutely perfect day to be a Watford fan. And we're back. We're back in the Premier League. We're back winning games in the Premier League. And I'm now, do you know what? Well, I put a tweet out about it earlier in the week that, you know what, people's expectations are on the floor. So let's just enjoy it. But if you're not going to be positive and absolutely buzzing after yesterday, then when are you going to be? When are you going to be excited? No one expected us to do as well as we did yesterday. I think a part of me even thinks, I don't think even Cisco or the players thought we'd do as well as we did yesterday. And it was unbelievable. I was speaking to a couple of Villa fans on the train back who were heading back to Birmingham or into London. And they were saying, we had no idea that you were going to be this good. We were so good on it from minute one. I think it took us a few minutes actually to settle down a bit, but we were so good.
Mate, absolutely. Completely agree with you. I just think Caroline makes a great point in the chat. The atmosphere inside the ground was absolutely incredible. And look, the Graham Taylor match, they executed perfectly. As Sam says, the class touch of having the NHS lap of honour, really emotional half-time. I have to admit, I was a bit taken aback from it, to be honest with you. There's some days in football where, I don't know, you'll remember it for a long, long time. That was definitely one of them. I think we'll look back on this in 5-10 years and go, right, this was one of the really momentous day in Watford's history.
I completely agree. I said that yesterday, that I was saying if we win today, or regardless, even if we, just the general touches of the game, this is going to be a game that, goes down in Watford history. It's one that we'll be telling our kids and our grandkids about, the game we were back after the pandemic and the class touches of the club. I saw something put out today as well. Sky did this poll about which club cares about the fans the most, and we came out on top in the Premier League. Not surprising at all. Genuinely, we nailed everything yesterday. I'm buzzing. The only downside of it, we don't have a home game in the Premier League at the Vic for another month.
Well, you know what, Sam? Just to touch on that, I had a little think about it, but Watford did get a little bit of a blessing in the sense of having the first game at home, I think. Because we know when we've been in the Premier League before, if we can get the Vic rocking, it's such a difficult place for an away team to go. And, as those Villa fans said to you, mate, I think Villa were taken a bit aback by the tempo that we set in the first half, particularly the intensity was there not only on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. And I think if we can continue that home atmosphere, that home intensity, it's going to result in a really good home form. And I think that is ultimately the essential thing for Watford this season, mate, is if we can pick up some wins at home, we're going to be all right this season, I think. But early days, it is early days. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. But before we get into Watford's performance today, guys, please do leave a like on the video if you enjoy. It massively helps us out. My voice is a little bit croaky today. I know Sam's is a little bit. We haven't had a lot of practice of absolutely, shouting our loudest. But if you do enjoy the video, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe to WD18 and make sure you leave all your comments in the comment section below. As always, you really do appreciate all the support. Just before we do get into that as well, I've had a few comments about there being no fan cams yesterday. Unfortunately, we're not doing those this season, but I'm hoping with the likes of the match reactions, we can continue with this sort of content and get you guys involved because ultimately that's the reason we run the channel, is to get as many fan opinions as possible. So if you want to get involved and get your comments read out, please do leave them in the comment section and we'll always discuss them. It's as I said, this is a channel for the fans, by the fans. Sam, right, looking back on yesterday, how did Watford win that game? Simply that. How did Watford win that game yesterday?
I think the midfield absolutely destroyed Aston Villa. I think they completely set the tempo. It's only one place to start, isn't it? The two new lads in the middle, Uri Kuka and Peter Etebo. I spoke about Peter Etebo in our season predictions last week, and I said he's going to be, I think I said player of the season or signing of the season. And he looked, we'll start off with him. He looked absolutely fantastic. Used his body so well, looked calm and composed on the ball. A couple of elements of his game I think he can work on. Perhaps a couple of rash positional decisions, but I feel like that's the first game of the season. A lot of players had that. He looks an absolute steal if we stay up for 1.5 million obligation to buy. I know it's early days, but we're giving credit where it's due. It's absolutely fantastic. The other one, Uri Kuka. I've never seen someone I've never seen anyone adopt a fan's favourite, a cult hero, as quickly as he did. The way he used his shoulders, he's like this massive, just like square in the middle of the pitch. He was untouchable. You couldn't get rid. Nutmegged about 5 players as well in the first half, and he was absolutely brilliant. I mean, people said he was like Barami. I think he was a different sort of player to Barami. He's a destroyer in the middle of the park, and I personally didn't expect him to start, but we spoke on the phone before the game yesterday, and you were like, "I've got a feeling he's going to go with Kuka." So fair play to you.
That is absolutely bang on. But me and Sam always call before the games, and I spoke to Sam and I said, "You know what, mate? I'm going to change on my match preview prediction. I think it'll be a midfield 3 of Etebo, Cleverley, and Uri Kuska." And mate, but you know what? Just touching on that midfield 3, I mean, there's a lot of comments coming in that, you know, people are buzzing with that midfield. But for me, Sam, the most pleasing thing, the most positive thing was the balance of that midfield. I never thought at one point it was too top heavy on the left or too top heavy on the right. You know, Peter Etebo's role was very much just to get the ball, break up play, win it back and move it on. And as you saw on WD18 at WD18 fans, Peter Etebo made more ball recoveries than any other player on the pitch. And I think it was 3 more than Matty Cash, if I'm correct. 11 in total, winning the ball back constantly, breaking up play, feeding Cleverley. His engine yesterday was fantastic. We'll get on to Clevs. And Uri Kuska is an absolute, he's a cult hero already, isn't he? I really like him. I think you may make a great point, Sam. You know, looking at his build, he's a 34-year-old. I have to admit, I was one who was apprehensive coming in. I kind of reserved my judgment with him because I thought, you know, this could be a shrewd bit of business, but also it could go the other way. We've complained, haven't we, on the channel before about Watford bringing in players who are going near towards the end of their career. But what Uri Kuska is, you look at his build, you think he's this absolute brute in midfield. But actually, he's so elegant on the ball. I know it's only one thing, but elegant on the ball. He's a destroyer in that midfield. And the way he was driving with the ball was so good. But Sam, I know you spoke really positively to me about Tom Cleverley. Do you think he kind of went under the radar a little bit yesterday in terms of the way he set the tempo?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I feel like it's, I mean, before I move on to Clevs, how good was it to see Cucho's tackle as well on, I can't remember who it was. But I know he got booked for it, but I think as well, just on it as well, I think you mentioned the word, the balance between the midfield. I think this is nothing against Dan Gosling, but when Cucho came off, and I was to say he has to come off because I thought he'd get sent off. He was one tackle away from going. Yeah, exactly. And we couldn't lose him for Brighton next week. And I did say he should come off, but when he did come off, nothing against Dan Gosling, but the shape was completely gone in the midfield, and that's when Villa started to control the ball a bit more. And also when Tom Cleverley came off as well. But on Tom Cleverley, always sets the tempo. I said from the start, people wanted, you know, a new midfielder in for Tom Cleverley. He has to start every single week for me. His leadership on the pitch, the intensity he sets, the pressing. He didn't have the best pre-season, admittedly. I think the Palace game, a couple of people were concerned about him. Or no, it was the West Brom game, actually. He wasn't too good. but he is so important to this Watford team. I can't tell you enough how important he is. The way he calms down players around him, the way he presses forward, he is so important. And he went on. I think he went under the radar yesterday simply because the other two players were debutants. No one expected them to do as well as they did. But I feel like Tom Cleverley is the forgotten man with how good he actually is. He is so important. I could talk about Clev's all video, but brilliant yesterday.
Made a great point about his organisation, communication. There was a point in the first half where I think we were trying to box Villa in, and Cleverley was basically telling Dennis, go there. He was telling Messina, push up. Sema boxed them in. And it's just those little things, that little bit of experience, that know-how in the Premier League that you need. And I think you make a really good point on Tom Cleverley, because he goes under the radar, and actually he got an assist yesterday for Cucho.
He did.
You know what? We'll touch on the 3 goals. We'll go through them, Sam. First one, Emmanuel Dennis on the score sheet, debutant. You know, it was. You know, the big thing for me, Sam, was a really good movement in the box. Dennis. I think I've struggled a little bit over the last 2 years in terms of the movement from some of our strikers, and I think what Emmanuel Dennis was the way he dragged Ezri Konsa out, then went in again. And I think that little bit of movement created that goal. Granted, he was fortunate with the rebound, but then that calmness under pressure. And just overall, Sam, I wanted to get your thoughts on Emmanuel, because he settled in really well. You know, ultimately, I think a lot of us were surprised to see him start yesterday.
Yeah.
What caught your eye about his performance in particular?
Yeah, I was really surprised to see him start. I think we all expected that it would be Deeney up front with the role that he played in pre-season. But as you said, what caught my eye was a real maturity to his game. The way he made those runs, it's Premier League quality sort of runs. You know, nothing against any of our other strikers, but I look at Troy, who likes to make that run to the back post, perhaps nod it down or nod it back across goal. We have Andre Gray, who likes to run straight into that 6-yard box. We had, I don't know, Stipe Perizza, who actually I think made similar runs to Emmanuel Dennis, and he's off now as well, Perizza, so wish him all the best. But it was just a really clever run, the way he pulled back and then made that a kind of a run to the front post as well. And we tried that a few times. I think his link up with him and Ismaila Sarr was something that really caught my eye yesterday. And I know I put a tweet out this morning that it might not have the same impact going forward, but that first year, the link up between Deeney and Igalo was really what allowed us to stamp our authority on the league. And I feel like that there's the potential there for Dennis and Sarr to really have a similar impact, and really impressive, really quality runs going forward, really good hold up play as well, which is something that I think a couple of fans I was speaking to before were worried about, and rapid as well, so quick. So,
mate, quick. And that's the thing with up front in Sarr and Dennis. Just a point on Sarr. I think a really big thing is just having someone who can keep up with him. Dennis can keep up with Sarr, and I think that's nothing against Troy, and that's nothing against Andre, but Dennis could match Sarr's pace. And I think the link-up play for Sarr's goal with Dennis's ball was a really well-timed ball. There was a couple in the second half where Dennis made some really nice flicks. That link-up play, as you say, Sam, was actually a little bit reminiscent of that Deeney-Igalo partnership. And look, I'm going to be honest, did you expect him to start yesterday? I was convinced Troy was going to start through the middle. I was surprised.
Yeah, I was absolutely convinced it would be Troy. It did surprise me. Yeah, I thought it would be Troy or Cucho, because we didn't really see much of Dennis in pre-season, did we? No. But I suppose that was simply just getting him sharp and ready, and proved to be another absolute masterclass from Cisco. But if we're moving on to Ismaila Sarr and his second goal, in terms of players stepping up from the Championship, as in, I know his performances were absolutely brilliant in the Championship, but to do well in the Premier League, you have to take it up that extra notch. It's gone under the radar. Matt Targett had to be taken off at half time because Sarr absolutely rinsed him. Sarr had him on absolute toast. I don't know if you watched Match of the Day, Jacob, but they analysed it, Matt Targett's performance, and Sarr. I've never seen anything. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it from a player in a Watford shirt. Having someone on a team on strings like that. Maybe not even since Delafeu against Cardiff. I don't think he had a hold of any one of those players in one go, and unbelievable. And if he can step up for the rest of the season, then not only will he probably end up as our player of the season, our top scorer, but it'll be perfect for the Potso kind of strategy, where we'll probably sell him on for big money next summer.
Mate, that Target got absolutely crucified by Isma.
Absolutely killed. Yeah.
I tell you what, again, there's been a lot of apprehension going into the league, and yes, it is only the first game of the season, Sam, but that front three of Sema, Dennis, and Sarr will cause a lot of backlines problems. That almost is a fact. And I think we discussed about how Watford were going to set up this season. But surely, from your perspective, you must be so confident seeing that front three, because if I was an opposition team like Aston Villa going to Vicarage Road yesterday and I was coming up against that pace, you're always going to cause teams problems, don't you think?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other positive to that is that they're so versatile as well, all of them, because we've seen how, we took off, I don't know who came up, Cucho came on for Dennis, wasn't it? And he immediately came on off the left and was able to interchange with other players in there. And it's one of those, like, I'm not comparing them just yet, but I remember with that famous front three of Suarez, Sturridge and Sterling, you had no idea where any of them were going to pop up. I remember Luis Suarez would pop on the halfway line, Sterling up front, and it was, you genuinely had no idea where you were looking for any of them. And I feel like with the options that we have going forward, it's going to be so hard for opposition to tell, where any of them are going to come up. And we've still got Josh King coming back. We've got João Pedro coming back. It's such a promising front line that we've got. But just a couple of things as well to pick up on. I was first of all really impressed with the relationship as well between Tom Cleverley and Ismaila Sarr. Cleverley on the right of that midfield was able to pick out Sarr. Weight of pass was perfect a lot of the time. And also something else, Sarr and Sema's tracking back was absolutely brilliant as well. Something that I picked up on a lot of the time, not a lot of the time, but there were a few times where it became a back six with Sema dropping in next to Messina and Sarr next to Cathcart, who, massive shout out to him as well for putting in a shift at right back. But it's those organisation skills. You can tell there was a game plan. They absolutely nailed it. And that's why we got the 3 points ultimately.
Absolutely. Let's have a little look through your comments. It's Finners makes a great point about Dennis. He showed his Champions League class yesterday. The mobility up against the two big centre-backs works so effectively. Very, very good point. Difficult skill to occupy two centre-backs, particularly of Konsa and Ming's quality as well. And I thought he did really well. Dennis's ball to Sarr was perfectly timed. Lewis has said he's just ordered an Etebo shirt. You know what, Sam? Just another area I wanted to kind of go into. Look, we've talked about Dennis. We've talked about Ismaila Sarr. We've got to talk about Cucho Hernandez. You mentioned he came off the bench. I mean, 35 seconds in, his first touch of the Watford shirt, and he's pretty much secured goal of the season already. You know what? It's just, there's something about him that, there's almost... You mentioned it, I think, to me, about when he's on the pitch, everyone, you could just, there's an aura about him. When he comes on the pitch, we all get excited because we know he's got that one bit of individual magic, and he showed that yesterday. It's the bleach hair, it's the grin, it's the swagger, it's the celebration as well, cupping his ear to the referee. It was almost a statement of like, I've arrived. This is what you've been waiting for. I have arrived. And Sam, it was reminiscent of a Roberto Pereira goal, actually, that one, bending in off the left-hand side, curling it into the far corner. And actually, just on that, the skill itself to dig that out from under his feet, bend it past Martinez, who isn't a small keeper.
Brilliant goalkeeper as well.
Unbelievable skill. Sam, he looks so bright, doesn't he?
Looks so good. Wow. And I mean, for just going into the build-up of that goal, you touched on it briefly earlier, but the way Tom Cleverley, the composure to pass it on the ground to Cucho, and as soon as he got the ball, everyone just we know where he's going. And I think that was a small expectation. We know that this is going to go in as well. As soon as it left his boot, I know it bent into the corner at the last minute, but it was absolute carnage as well when we scored. I don't know what it was about it, but it was almost like, as you say, it was almost like we've arrived in the Premier League. This is Cucho Hernandez time. And I mean, it's another debate. I think it's one we'll probably have on the Brighton match preview, but I'd keep him on the bench personally. I feel like he's the player to inject pace into the game. He's a player to take the game to the opposition when they're perhaps tiring. And I think that should be his role this season. It's a big debate to have, and let us know what you think in the comments. But for now, I'd keep him on the bench. But absolutely fantastic. And it's been 5 years in the making, this, and I'm sure he's been waiting his time as well, those 5 years. So brilliant to see him get on the score sheet.
Excited to see more of him. I mean, the guy, he's just so bright on the ball. It just, you know what? I think one thing I would say just on Cucho, I think he'll be better off the left-hand side than he would be through the middle. I think his ability to draw defenders in, cut inside, and even go the other way around the defender is a real asset for us, and also gives an element of unpredictability. I don't see him as a striker who plays on his own. I see him as either we go for a 4-3-3 and he plays off the left, or if we go for a 2, him just playing off the striker, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
Where I'd probably deploy him, Sam. Look, Cucho, I mean, he
played a lovely ball into Troy as well.
He's so excited, so excited to see him. Sorry, mate, what were you saying?
Love him. Yeah, no, he played a really good ball into Troy as well. I think Troy should have scored there. I couldn't exactly see, but I think Troy should have scored perhaps from a lovely ball in that Cucho put in there. But going from we've spoken about the midfield and the front line a lot. I think just a massive shout out for me. We'll go from the back five in order. Daniel Bachmann, first of all. I don't think he had a save of note to make. I'm just going to find a comment. Someone said something about Daniel Bachmann earlier, but he was there was something different about Bachmann yesterday. Here we go. Dominated his box well. Basically, first of all, absolutely banging trim from him, and you could tell from where I was sitting is the skin fade back and sides, absolutely amazing. But on top of that, while he didn't really have a notable save to make, that something that I worried about a lot last season was him coming out for crosses and commanding his box. There were a few times yesterday when we were under pressure from corners, and particularly in those last, I think they went up as soon as they scored the penalty, I remember I was terrified, and they got the ball back pretty much straight away, put a ball in the box. He came out and claimed it. Don't think Daniel Bachmann does that last season. I think there's a new confidence to him following going to the Euros, and he looked really, really strong in his box yesterday. And that's what we're going to need this season. Someone who's going to calm down the defence, put less pressure on the defence, and someone just, relax everyone's nerves. And that's, for me, is where Daniel Bachmann was absolutely superb yesterday.
Yeah, agreed, mate. Agreed. It was a moment where we needed him to step up, and I think, as you said, last season, there was a couple of times where you thought Dan needs to be a bit more commanding in his area, but as its Finners says, I think he was really good in that department yesterday. We'll go through the back four, Sam. Craig Cathcart fielding at right back, then Troost Kong, Christian Kabasele and Adam Messina. You know what? I just wanted to touch on Adam Messina quickly, because obviously he did give away the penalty, and it was, it was a tired, clumsy tackle from Adam Messina. But I think it'd be silly for us to define his performance yesterday based on that incident alone, because I actually thought he played pretty well, Adam Messina. I thought he had a good game, considering it's his first game for us this season as well, Sam. But I thought him and Sema linked up quite well. I thought Adam Messina was pretty solid. Do you think it's fair to really go in on him? Well, I'm not saying fans are going in on him.
No.
Kind of negativity around that incident.
I know what you mean, but at the same time, this is the Premier League, and I think there are a few players in this team. I'll say for 94 minutes, Messina was absolutely brilliant. One of those who went under the radar. But we have a few players in there who have that ability to play well for 94 minutes and then ruin it like that. I'm not saying it ruined his performance completely, because the game was ultimately done at that point, although everyone was a bit nervous. But it's just that I'm happy it's the first day of the season, but it's something that he'll need to work on. I think it's probably a fitness thing as well, because you said it's a tired tackle, and perhaps with more minutes in his legs.
A few times, I'm not gonna lie, mate. It's so when you're like, I can't be bothered to actually jump.
Yeah.
You're just like, that way.
Exactly, and it was the subs that Villa were able to make as well, the pace of Bailey and Traore as well. So, I mean, it is what it is. Didn't affect the game, but I'm not worried about Messina. Did really, really well yesterday on the whole, and hopefully he can build on that next week.
Agreed. The backline put in a big shift yesterday. I thought Cabra and Truce complemented each other really
brilliant
well.
Both of them brilliant. Absolute Cabra and Truce. I think a lot of fans are disappointed not to see Sarr Alta. I mean, we said in the preview, I don't think it would be Sarr Alta, because I don't think he had enough minutes in his legs following the Copa America. But Cabra was absolutely brilliant. I think he is the one as well that, I mean, I mentioned that he's the one that he'd play well for 94 minutes, then get sent off or something like that. I love Cabra though. And it was a pleasing performance from the local man. I think that's the best way of saying it.
The local man is very pleased after yesterday. Move on to the midfield three. We've touched on it. Cucho, Etebo and Cleverley look brilliant. I think probably Etebo and Cucho were the two particular standouts. Nothing against Tom Cleverley, but I think for their debuts, I mean, Etebo was just breaking up play, winning everything back. The way he shields the ball. I had this discussion with my dad, Sam. I was trying to work out who he reminds me of, and I think he's, no disrespect to Jonathan Hogg, but I think he's a better player than Jonathan Hogg. But he reminds me of him in the respect that Hogg used to kind of put his body in the way, used to get these little tackles, composed on the ball. That was kind of the player he reminded me of a little bit in that midfield. But there was just times where you needed Etebo just to keep the ball and calm everyone down, and he did that well. We broke up play. Cucho as well. The balance of that midfield three was so good. We've touched on those guys, and obviously the front three of Sarr, Dennis, and Ken Sema and Cucho. I mean, there's so many standouts yesterday.
Albert, just on. I mean, Craig Cathcart he did a job yesterday. I think that's the best way of saying it. But the Cafu Cathcart, right back, and I mean, he filled in really well. But there were just a couple of times where I thought if Kiko was playing, then we would be absolutely deadly on that right hand side. And Target probably would have been taken off after 20 minutes, let alone at half time. So that it's only going to get better from here as well. And it's, as I said, if you're not going to be positive and excited about this Watford side now, then I don't think you ever will be.
Agreed, mate. Agreed. I guess we've got to be balanced on it. I think the key thing with this result is it was a fabulous Watford display. I think we did catch the Villa at the right time in the respect, of course, it's their first game without Jack Grealish. It's their first game without Watkins and well, not first game. They didn't have Watkins and Douglas Luiz. I think Douglas Luiz in particular would have made a big difference to that Aston Villa team. I really think he's a good player and would have made it an interesting battle in the midfield three. But that is absolutely taking nothing away from Watford's performance yesterday. It was really, really good. But I guess, Sam, the big thing for us now is kicking on and going to Brighton away. Because I said after the first two, you take 4 points. So if we could go to Brighton and at least get a point, I think that's a great start to our Premier League season, isn't it?
Yeah, win your home games, get a point at your away games. That's what you need to stay up in this league. And do you know what? You say that, I don't see what... I know we have to be realistic and trying to keep my feet on the ground here as much as I want to get carried away. But Brighton are a team who there's a good... I know they won yesterday, but there's a good chance they'll be in a similar area of the league to us this season. I don't see why we can't have the confidence to go there and win. We can, with the attacking talent we've got. I know they got a good back line in there with the likes of Lewis Dunk is still there, but exactly. But for example, stick Sarr on Dan Burn, for example. I don't know if it's the same side, but just get him to run at him. And I don't see why we can't go with full confidence of winning next week.
Yeah, agreed, mate. Agreed. Just going back on to yesterday, I had a bit of a discussion again with my dad, the famous Martin Culshaw, big up. Do you think 3-2 flattered Aston Villa a little bit yesterday?
Yeah, that definitely. What a goal by John McGinn, by the way. Absolutely brilliant.
You know what? It was just to jump in there, Sam. For me, it was a timely reminder of we're back. That was almost a little bit of a we're back in the Premier League now.
Yeah.
In the Championship, you don't get those goals. You don't.
Yeah.
You know what? I couldn't even pinpoint. I mean, if you're being hypercritical, maybe Cathcart should have got a little bit closer.
Yeah. You can't get. Yeah.
It was such a good goal, and it just highlighted the quality in the Premier League. Maybe a slight lapse in concentration. You just can't. You just don't get that in the Championship. And it was a timely reminder that we do have to keep concentration for 90 minutes. But ultimately, Sam, I don't think we could do a lot about that goal. It was the Messina one for me, which is a little bit of a right. Here we go. It was squeaky bum time right at the end.
But I think you're right. I think yesterday was the perfect example of what the Premier League is like. We scored 3 very high quality goals. That's what you need to score. You need to score high quality goals in the Premier League. And there were 2 moments where, absolute split second of quality from John McGinn gets them back in the game. And then a lapse of concentration from Adam Messina gets them back in the game. So it's those moments that you need to learn in the Premier League really affect you. And that's where, that's, I know it's the first day of the season, but that's where we'll need to learn from as other teams will punish us.
Agreed. I mean, I thought 3-2 did flatter Aston Villa. I mean,
agreed.
Very honest his post-match comments. We were 3-0 up, and it was a little. I guess I don't want to put a bit of a downer on it, Sam, but I guess the only thing is we didn't get a clean sheet. I think that's probably the one aspect of our game which I thought would have been good to open up at Vicarage Road with a clean sheet. Just looking at some other aspects of yesterday, Sam, backing the recruitment team at Watford, 1 game in. But a lot of people did not. Well, I think it's fair to say a lot of people did write off the likes of Peter Etebo and Juraj Kuchka and Emmanuel Dennis, and I mean the list could go on really. But we
could go on. Let's even go back to January and people who wrote off Dan Gosling as well.
Dan Gosling, another one. So is it a case of we need to trust the football club? We need to trust the recruitment team at Watford that they'll get it right.
100%. And now I said this to you on the phone after the game as well yesterday. I don't want to mention the names again because it's just going on and on still. But if Will Hughes and Nathaniel Chalobah go, now we're in complete safe hands. I mean, I'm hoping they can carry on these performances, Cucho and Etebo. But it's genuinely, just it's fine. You have to trust them. You have to trust the Pozzos. They know what they're doing. They're experienced men in football. They've taken us from strength to strength, except for that, season where they've admitted to their mistakes and they look like they're going to hopefully build on it this season. And they've absolutely nailed the transfer window, it seems. I know it's early days, so you don't want to get too carried away, but the early signs are that they've absolutely nailed it.
I tell you what, mate, just on that, you mentioned the two lads who have been in contract negotiations, as pretty much every Watford fan knows. Very interesting to see Nathaniel Chalobah's tweet yesterday. Let us know what you think of this, guys, in the comment section. So his brother Trevor scored a really good goal for Chelsea yesterday. It was a lovely moment, actually, when he kind of dropped to his knees and was incredibly emotional to break through the Chelsea team and get his first goal. And his brother scored, and Chalobah put a tweet out saying, "My bro makes his first start in the Prem for Chelsea. He then scores in that game. Then my team, Watford, obviously, wins their first game of the season. Think it's time to shake this sickness off. Hashtag what a day." Looks like he's staying, Sam.
Hoping so. Yeah, I'm hoping so. I love Chalobah. I don't want to read too much into it. Yeah, wow. It's so many options. It's exciting time to be a Watford fan.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. We'll see what happens with Nate. And I think that's pretty much where we're going to leave it. You know what? Last word, Sam, on Xisco. Again,
Yes.
who's been doubted quite a lot. Early days, it is early days, but what I just loved about Xisco yesterday was his energy down the touchline. He was really getting everyone off their feet.
When we scored the first goal, went over to the Elton John stand, trying to get everyone as loud as they can. He is love the guy. He's a Watford manager. That's what he is. He embodies everything that's important about the football club. And wow, brilliant. I can't even, I've run out of words to describe Xisco with how we've described him on the channel since we got promoted, really. Top bloke, nailed it yesterday, and exciting to see how he can develop as a manager in the future as well.
Great comment here from Ben Aiton, obviously from Voices of the Vic. I actually saw Ben at Walkabout yesterday. Great to see you. And make sure you do go and follow the Voices of the Vic podcast as well. Really good stuff from Mike and Ben. In Xisco, we trust. I think that's the perfect way to end it, Sam. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll be back this week for some content leading up to the Brighton game this Saturday. Myself and Sam are going to be there. Match day experience coming back this Saturday. Brighton away. It's going to be a good one. 5:30 kickoff at the Amex. Cannot wait for it, Sam. It's been an absolute pleasure today. First win at the Premier League season. They finished Watford 3, Aston Villa 2. Don't forget to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to WD18 if you're new. Thank you to all of you who watched today. Over 200 of you getting involved. And if you're watching this back, make sure you do leave your comments in the comment section below. And we always read through them. Take care of yourself. Have a great week, guys. And up the Hornets. Come on, you.